When you're talking about abiding in the self, is this any different than being aware of our own existence?
No, it's the same.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, because um, as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Upadeshundya, being oneself alone is knowing oneself. That is, ourself is not an object. We can't know ourself as an object. We can know ourself only as ourself, as awareness. So when we are aware of anything other than ourself, that is a mental activity. Our attention is moving away from ourself towards some other thing. We are projecting something in our awareness. So that is a mental activity. But being aware of ourself alone is our natural state of just being. So to put it in another way, what we actually are is pure awareness. Pure awareness can never be an object of awareness. So we can know pure awareness. What knows pure awareness is only pure awareness. So in order to know pure awareness, we need to be pure awareness. So being ourself and knowing ourself are one and the same. So self-abidance is just another name for self-abidance means being what we actually are. Even to say abiding in ourself is not quite correct. It'd be more precise to say abiding as ourself. In other words, abiding as we actually are. And
So
that
that's why
means not,
we have to practice this in the awakened state because it does take effort to be aware, at least initially, to like,
well, we are always aware, but the problem is because it's a matter of attention. That is, awareness is our very nature. So it's not a matter, it's a matter of when attention is a function of ego. When we rise as ego, we project all this multiplicity. But we can't be equally aware of everything that we've projected. So as ego, we have an ability to focus our awareness, so to speak, on one thing or one set of things. That is what is called attention. It's a focusing of our awareness. So normally, because of our interest in things other than ourselves, our attention is focused outwardly. So though we're always aware I am, we we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are because we cover that awareness of ourselves with awareness of other things. So in order to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we need to focus our attention on ourself alone. To the extent to which we focus our attention on ourselves, it is thereby withdrawn from other things. And one thing Bhagavan has made very clear, but I don't think has been explained so clearly and explicitly in any of the ancient scriptures or any of the ancient philosophical texts or by any of the ancient sages. What Bhagavan made clear is what is the nature of ego. In verse 25 of Uludunapadu, Bhagavan says he describes ego as a formless demon. The reason he describes it as formless is ego has no form of its own. What ego essentially is just awareness. But as awareness, it's not ego. But if it remains as pure awareness, it's not ego. So ego, as he says there, grasping form, it comes into existence. What he means by that is, as soon as we rise as ego, we project and grasp a body as ourself. We take a body to be ourself. That's what he means in that first sentence by grasping form. Which comes first, the rising of ego or the grasping of a body as I? We can't say they're simultaneous. That is, ego is defined by its nature of grasping form. So he says, grasping form, it comes into existence. Grasping form, it stands. That is, without taking a body to be I, we cannot rise as ego. Without holding on to that body as I, we cannot stand as ego. We cannot endure as ego. And then in the third sentence, he says, grasping and feeding on form, it flourishes abundantly. Grasping and feeding on form means we, as soon having taken this body to be I, we don't keep our attention on this body. Our attention goes out through the five senses to so many other things. So our attention is constantly on other things. All things other than ourselves are forms. But we ourselves are essentially formless. So ego cannot stand, it cannot rise, it cannot stand, and it cannot flourish or nourish itself without constantly grasping form. That means without constantly attending to things other than itself. So if instead of attending to other things, if ego tries to attend to itself, since it is formless, by attending to itself, it subsides. Because without holding on to forms, it cannot stand. When it turns its attention back to itself, it subsides. So to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we thereby subside. And when we subside, what do we subside into? We subside into our being. So that is what is meant by self-abidance. It's that state in which ego has subsided back into the pure being that we actually are. And that is brought about by being self-attentive. Some people, I've heard, some people who don't have a very deep and clear understanding of Bhagavan's teachings say, but Bhagavan's main teaching is not self-inquiry or self-investigation. It's not ātma-vicāra. That's only a secondary teaching. His main teaching is just being. But what they don't understand is how to just be. Just be means not rising as ego. And the only means to just be is by attending to ourself. So just being and ātma-vicāra are actually one and the same. Some people say it's another way. They say his main teaching is not ātma-vicāra, his main teaching is silence. But what is silence? It's the silence of being. So we can be the silence that we actually are only by attending to ourselves. So ātma-vicāra, or self-attentiveness, that is the key to being as we actually are, or abiding as ourself. Is that a clear answer?
Oh, that's very clear. And when I think about when I first started this, one of the first things I read was "Who am I?" And in there, when he's asking what is the self or the nature of the self, the answer was Satchitananda, which is exactly what you just talked about.
Yeah. Well, actually, the first question that Shiva Prashan Pillai asked was, "Who am I?" To which Bhagavan's answer was, "Arivenan." That means awareness alone is I. And then the second question is, what is the nature of that awareness? And Bhagavan's answer was Satchitananda. Shiva Prashan Pillai later, for his own clarification, he added in this neti explanation to Bhagavan's answer to his first question. But that was only for his own clarification. But when Bhagavan saw that, at first he said, "Oh, I didn't say that." But then he said, "Oh, he would have added that for his clarification, let it remain." So even when Bhagavan wrote it in an essay form, he retained that portion that Shiva Prashan Pillai had added for his own clarification. But Bhagavan's actual answer wasn't even neti. It was simply, he gave a straight answer to a straight question. Who am I? Awareness alone is I. And that awareness, the nature of that awareness is Satchitananda.